ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम्। अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वाम् अनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः। प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयत्रतजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितम्। लोके सज्जन षट्पथैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति देव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः Hari Om. Today we begin the storytelling session, the Mahabharata story. Mahabharata is a large canvas on which a beautiful picture is painted. Where to begin? Okay. We will begin with Raja Shantanu. Raja Shantanu of the great Bharata dynasty. He was ruling in Hastinapura and he was a great king. The young man, one day, he was taking a stroll on the banks of Ganga. And he saw the most beautiful young lady of divine beauty. He has never seen such a beautiful maiden before, ever. And naturally, he got attracted. So he approached her. And then he came to know that she was none other than Ganga. She had assumed that form and come there. Then when Shantanu proposed to her, she accepted. However, she put a condition. And the condition was that he should love her unconditionally, regardless of what she says or does. She would also be a loving wife and all that, but he should never question any of her actions. Whatever she may do, he should not challenge her. If he questions, she would leave him immediately. In this day and age, nothing unusual about this threat. It's par for the course. But let's see what happens. In any case, when a man is in love, he does not really think through. At that time, he did not realize how difficult such a blanket acceptance will be. Anyhow, they got married, lived happily. Everything was going fine. And then a child was also born. Till that time, everything was just going fine. But when the child was born, she took the child and drowned the child in the river Ganga. Can you imagine the horror? Such a beautiful and dutiful wife can have such a heart. Some words came to his mouth all the way up to the tip of his tongue, dangling on his lips. But he remembered the condition and his promise. And he just swallowed those words. And this was not just an isolated incident. Each time a child was born, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Gone just like that. Then came the eighth child. And she was about to drown that child also. He just could not control himself. He just cannot. He just could not. He thought, enough is enough. Whatever may happen. And he said, stop. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? We may say, she should have given the reason. If she did, then there will be no suspense. She just looked at him and said, you've broken your promise. Time has come for me to leave. I'll take the child with me. And in due course of time, I will bring him back to you. That's it. Case closed. He could not take her to any court to claim custody of the child. Nothing. She appeared at will. She disappeared also. That's all. We may wonder, what's all this? What's all this? These children were actually celestial beings called Vasus, Ashta Vasus. They are great gods, but sometimes they make mistakes. And they did. And they were cursed that you did not act according to your status, and therefore you are going to be born as human beings. They could not stand that demotion. Directly from the heavens to this mortal earth. So they pledged, pleaded for forgiveness, and prayed that they should be freed as soon as they were born. That could be done only by Mother Ganga. So they prayed to her for this arrangement. So from this it is very clear. What one may see as an act of horror, there may be a reason for it. It appears she was heartless. Actually, she was liberating them, fulfilling their wish only. So when we understand this, the horror goes away. Anyhow, the eighth child survived, and his name was Devavrata. Devavrata was his name. And when he became a young boy, he was dexterous in archery, well-groomed, cultured. He was such a wonderful boy. And one day he was playing on the banks of Ganga. And Raja Shantanu happened to come there also. And he saw him. And he was wondering, who is this fine boy? At that time, Ganga manifested and she told him, this is your son. He is the eighth Vasu and have raised him well. You take him now. Let the boy go with you. Now that boy, separated from the mother, was sad, naturally. The mother said, do not worry. If and when you have any problem at all, You come here and I will advise you. I will help you. So, with that kind of assurance, he felt a little better. And so the boy left with Raja Shantanu. And he was growing up well also. Shantanu was happy that he finally got to see his boy and be with him. But things do not stay the same. Shantanu was relatively young. He had a son. The mother was not there. King was there, but there was no queen. So Shantanu was a little bit sad about that. One day again, as destiny would have it, one day he smelled a sweet fragrance. And he wondered, from where is it coming? And he found that it was coming from a beautiful lady. He didn't know who she was, but actually, she belonged to a fisherman community. Fisherman community? Such a sweet fragrance? Huh? Doesn't jive? Who was she? Her name was Satyavati. She was beautiful, but earlier the smell that was with her was only that of fish. Because she lived in the community, they handled the fish all day long. Naturally, that smell would be there, fishy smell will be there. But as luck would have it, or destiny, or fate, whatever you call, the great Parasara Rishi saw her. And that Parasara Rishi, he got smitten, he got infatuated with her at that time. And he was a great Rishi, and he was able to change her fish body odor to sweet fragrance. And that's how she had that wonderful fragrance. Anyway, from their association was born Vedavyasa Rishi. We will not bring in Vedavyasa into the story at this time. He was growing up somewhere. One thing about Mahabharata and Vedavyasa, one thing is he has given the truth as it is. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is sugar coated. He did not embellish his pedigree. He was born to a fisherwoman. He didn't hide that. He did not hide that and just, highlighted that he was the son of Parasara Rishi. He didn't do any of that. He just told the story as it is. We may wonder, how can such a great Rishi we may wonder, how can such a great Rishi, the great Parasara Rishi, have this kind of desire? We may wonder. If it happens, in such cases, it is because of some divine intervention. If it did not happen, we may not have had Veda Vyasa Rishi. Who knows? It's all God's will. Not really because of their will. Who knows what God wants? In case of Jivan Muktas or such rishis, only God's will prevails. Of course, we should not try to imitate them or justify our shortcomings. You cannot use this as examples and excuses. If you do not have any blemishes also, don't you think you are better than such rishis? All those things come to our mind. Anyway, now here, that Satyavati was there and Shantanu saw her. He was hooked. And again, he went and talked to her and proposed to her. She said, I don't have a problem, but you have to ask my father. You have to ask my father. If he gives the blessings, no problem. If he says it is okay, it's okay with me. So come talk to my father. So Raja Shantanu went to that fisherman and asked for a daughter's hand in marriage. Now that father, Satyavati's father said, now see, you already have a son. You have a son. Naturally, he will be the king after you. If my daughter marries, if she marries you, and a son is born to you both, he will not have any claim to the throne. He will be a stepson only. He has to play only second fiddle. That's no good. So you should promise to make Satyavati's son the king after you. Poor Shantanu, everywhere he goes, some condition is thrown at him. But Shantanu could not accept that. This time, he was a few years older and probably wiser. So he didn't immediately say yes as he did the first time. He came back. What to do? This is my prarabdha. He was depressed. Everybody could see that. So did Devavrata. He noticed that his father was depressed and asked him what was bothering him. Shantanu did not give an acceptable answer. He was evasive. So naturally, Devadatta has to do his own personal investigation. Not very difficult. He got hold of the charioteer who takes him everywhere and question him. You always know the butler or the chauffeur. You turn to them, you can find out. You just have to make them talk, that's all. So he went to the charioteer and asked him, questioned him, and he told what happened. So Devavrata went to meet that fisherman father and then talked to him. And the father had told him the condition that he had put. And Shantanu, not willing to abide by that, went away. And since then, he was having the blues. So when Devavrata heard all this, he immediately offered to relinquish his rights to the kingdom. Devavrata said, I will serve your daughter's son. My stepbrother, I will make him the king. I will let him become the king. And I will also be loyal to him. Promise that. But that fisherman was very clever. Very clever. He said, you are a noble son. I can see that. When I described what the situation is, you immediately offer to relinquish your rights. I can see that. But who can guarantee what your son will do in the future? You will get married, you will get a son, and that son would have been the heir apparent, but that's lost because you stepped aside. So, and he didn't promise anything to me. So he may cause trouble. And so my grandson, my great children may have to come back to this fishing village again. Devavrata at once said, I take a vow of lifelong celibacy. There will not be any possibility of anyone laying claim to the kingdom on account of me. When Devatas heard that, they showered flowers on him. And they said, Bhishma, Bhishma, Bhishma. The literal meaning of the word Bhishma is terrible. But here a vow that is taken is extremely difficult to observe. That's a terrible vow. That's what they were referring to. Such a vow Devadatta took for the happiness of his father. This young man was able to do that. Even that fisherman was stunned. So that is our Bhishma Pitamaha. From then on, Devavrata used to be called Bhishma. Bhishma not only took a vow, but he kept his promise throughout his life. Now you may say, before taking any such vow, you must think about it. If it so happens, later on a terrible, unrighteous person becomes the king, will you stick to your words? Doing so may be harmful to you. Who knows what will happen in the future? In hindsight, you may say he should not have taken such a vow. That's a different matter. Here, Bhishma saw his father's happiness only. That was utmost important to him. So he gave that vow and stood by it. Then he took Satyavati to his father and asked him to marry her. The father heard everything. On one hand, he was happy. On the other hand, when he looked at the conditions, he was aghast. He was saddened by the sacrifice that his son is making for him. Bhishma told his father, "You don't worry about all that. That Raja Shantanu was also a righteous person, and pleased with his devoted son, he only blessed him with Icha Maranam, ability to die only at his will." This we will see later on also. Some of you may be aware of this. He had where he can live as long as he wants, and he will die only when he wants to die. That's a blessing he had, and it came from Raja Shantanu. If you look at the life of Bhishma, his life was only that of sacrifice and sacrifice. He only lived for others. Pujya Gurudev used to say that the hero of Mahabharata is Bhishma Pitamaha. Now, Bhishma name has become so popular that many people do not even know that his earlier name was Devavrata. People won't know that. How many of you knew? I didn't know before I studied the Mahabharata story. Anyway, Bhishma was serving his parents. Shantanu and Satyavati had two children, Chitrangata and Vichitravirya. Chitrangata died young, and Vichityavirya became the king after Shantanu. And he was also not a very strong individual. Bhishma was mighty. Bhishma had even conquered Parsurama, who had to accept that Bhishma was incomparable in valor and strength. Mother Ganga had raised him well, and she was also there whenever he needed any help. Finally, she let him go and told him. He used to go to her, ask for advice, and one time she said, "This is the last time you come to me. From now on, you have to figure out and solve your problems." Because she knew he was capable of doing that. So do not keep coming back to me. That is a message for all of us. Ultimately, everyone has to live their life. And though that goes for our children also. One must understand this lesson. And no one can live someone else's life forever and ever. You can live the life of someone else, and they can live your life. Of course, everyone can help one another. That's fine. But you have to live your life. You have to be independent. Then Bhishma thought, Vichitya Virya is here, and I must bring some princess for him to choose and marry. So in those days, they held Swayamvara. The Kashi Raja held a Swayamvara for his daughters, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. And they used to have tests to find out the strength and might of the suitors. Bhishma went and he defeated all others. So he took the three princesses and was coming back to Hastinapura. They were taken not for himself, but for his half brother. On the way, Amba said, I've already given my heart to someone else. That person also loves me. So when Bhishma heard this, he let her go. You go to that Rajkumar. But unfortunately, when she went to him, that Rajakumara would not accept her. You were captured by Bhishma and you went with him. It's humiliating for me to accept you. You only go to him. Huh? What to do? She was like a ping pong going back and forth. So he came back to Bhishma. And Bhishma told her, hey, look, I've taken a vow of celibacy. So I cannot take you back. He suggested to go back again, you plead with him. That did not sit well with her. And she took a vow that she would do penance, give up this body, take up another body, come back, and she will be instrumental in killing Bhishma. She did exactly that by being born later as Shikhandi. The battlefield, there was a confrontation between Shikhandi and Bhishma. And Bhishma knew that Shikhandi was actually a woman. And Bhishma would not shoot an arrow at a woman. So in front of Bhishma, Shikhandi was invincible. Anyway, we will leave this part of the story here for now. It's very difficult to remember everything, the Mahabharata story, and take it through simple sequence. So many puzzles, as it were. So I may make some mistakes here and there. So pardon me. This is called an anticipatory plea for forgiveness if you make some mistakes. Bhishma had to endure never-ending tragedies. That Vichitya Virya also did not survive and he died without a child. That fisherman father thought he was very clever and came up with a strategy so that his grandson will become a king. Sometimes the best laid out plans do not come to fruition. Yes, both his two grandsons were eligible to become the king, and one of them did also. Did they enjoy being a king? And were they able to rule the kingdom? No. Very clearly proved in this case. Whatever strength that kingdom of Hastinapura had was because of Bhishma. The de facto king was only Bhishma. Bhishma relinquished his rights and he became only a guardian. He had only custodial duty, fiduciary responsibility he had. He could have given up that vow and taken charge. And even that suggestion was made. When all this transpired, and this was the situation, the kingdom had no succession. So the suggestion was made for him to take charge. He said, no, I cannot become the king. I cannot marry also. Now what to do? They had to come up with a succession plan. There is a constitutional crisis. No king, and none in the offing. No other Rajkumaras are there. What could be done? One method was you adopt someone, the adopted son becomes the king. There are also some other pragmatic methods, which is commonly called apat dharma. In the normal course, the king must marry and the son born will be a prince and eventually will become the king. Succession goes on. Certain situations they used to adopt from their relatives. If that option is not available, there were certain protocols that they used to follow. Such options were invoked only in the case of crisis of this kind. What was that? You invite someone to impregnate the widowed queen. That last ditch effort was there. With everyone's consent, such a step was taken. Now, Satyavati and Bhishma had an emergency meeting to chalk out a plan. The easiest option was Bhishma to step up, but he was totally steadfast in his vow of celibacy. Finally, Satyavati came up with a viable idea. She thought of her other son and she said, I have a son through Parasara Rishi. That son is a great sage. He's not an ordinary person. That is Vyasa. See how various stories come together? So she said we should invite Vyasa. Bhishma also agreed. That's an excellent idea. That's right. So they invited Vyasa. He came. Yes, mother. What's your command? And she said, this is what we want you to do. Okay. Not that he was going to live in the palace to be the king or anything like that. It's very similar to the sperm donation in modern times. They did not have IVF methods and artificial insemination techniques developed at that time. Or maybe they did, who knows. The end result is the same. From one Rajakumari, Dhritarashtra was born, but he was born blind. The reason was she did not really want to go through with this. So she closed her eyes. The baby that was conceived was born blind. From the other Rajakumari came Pandu. In between, there is also another twist. The Rajakumari sent her maid servant instead of herself. And the child that came was Vidura. So Vidura is born as a Dasi Putra, which is another story in itself. But Vidura is none other than Yamraj, Dharmaraj. We will not get into those stories. In any case, he did not have any rights to the kingdom. So now what happened? Now we have babies. They're not old enough to rule. So who was ruling? It was Bhishma Pitamaha. And he was taking care of all administrative duties. Strange how fate works. We just don't know. It's inscrutable. Bhishma promised that he would never claim his rights to the kingdom, even though he was the first born to Shantanu. Bhishma was the first born to Shantanu. But he never became the king. He did not go back on his promise. Yet he essentially was ruling the kingdom, although he would never be called a king. Anyway, Dhritarashtra, who had this physical handicap, cannot be a ruler. Then Pandu became the king. Dhritarashtra was married to Gandhari from Gandhara Desha, the present day Afghanistan. She was a great lady, Pativrata, devoted to her husband. She said, if my husband cannot enjoy the pleasure of vision, sight, I don't want to see either. She blindfolded herself. One may say, that's foolishness. She should be the eyes for her husband. She, however, felt very differently. Each character in Mahabharata is very unique. Devavrata renounced all pleasures for the sake of his father. Gandhari gave up her vision for the sake of her husband. Pandu was married and he had two wives. One was Kunti and the other was Madri. Then he became the king. Let us leave the story here for the day. Let him enjoy the kingdom for some time. What happens next? We will see in the next class. The whole story is very absorbing. Once you get to know the story, we can appreciate the war and the Gita teaching. One thing I want to caution you, we should not judge the characters from our present day norms. Take it as it is, and that will be educational. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.